It is May 10th, 2026. Just picture this unusually warm spring afternoon in Ilsan, in Goyang City.
Oh, it was hot that day.
Yeah, unexpectedly hot. And you are standing in this sprawling public space. The sun is just beating down on the pavement, definitely a little harder than you'd expect for early May.
Right, definitely.
And a crowd is starting to gather, but, they aren't flocking to some massive stadium.
No ticket gates.
Exactly. No ticket gates, no laser lights, no pyrotechnics. Instead, they're drawn by the sound of a live acoustic band tuning up.
Which is such a specific, raw sound.
It really is, and they're drawn by the undeniable vocal presence of Gwyn Dorado and the K-pop group Primrose.
Yes.
This isn't some polished, tightly controlled indoor arena where, every single movement is choreographed down to the millimeter.
No, not at all.
It is an open-air guerrilla busking event. Welcome to Future_Music Deep Dive.
It is so good to be here with you for this one. I mean, right off the bat, I need to establish exactly how we are stepping into this space today.
Yeah, we have to clarify that.
Because we were not physically present at this event in Goyang City.
No, sadly.
We genuinely wish we were. But this entire exploration we are about to embark on is only possible because of a trusted Filipino friend of ours.
Yes, a massive thank you to them.
Truly. They actually attended and captured the entire event in this stunning wide view format just for us.
I have to admit, I felt a sincere pang of sadness when that footage first came through our inbox.
Oh, I totally get that.
It is just one of those occupational hazards of our work, right? We are so often tied down analyzing the mechanics of the music industry from our desks.
Yeah, stuck behind screens.
Exactly. So we miss out on these spontaneous moments as they happen out in the wild. But at the same time, I feel this deep, restrained appreciation for that distance.
Oh.
Well, because we weren't there getting swept up in the immediate adrenaline of the crowd, our distance forces us to be far more observant.
Oh, that was a really good point.
It humbles us, really. It demands that we look at the footage critically. We can pay attention to the edges of the frame just as much as the center.
That is perfectly stated. And what is really fascinating here is that the wide view lens our friend used, well, it changes everything about how we interpret this footage.
It really does. It's not like those standard clips you see online.
Exactly. This isn't a tight, shaky cell phone video focused solely on the artist's faces. It captures the entire spatial layout.
You can see everything.
Yeah, we can see the pedestrian walkways, the scattered trees, the way the crowd just organically filters in. And that actually brings us to our mission for this analysis.
Right. We are going to analyze this public performance not just as a fun, breezy weekend event.
Definitely not.
We are looking at this as a highly strategic step phase in the careers of both Gwyn Dorado and Primrose.
A crucial step phase.
We are going to explore the live chemistry, the actual mechanics of how they connect with a crowd that hasn't paid to see them.
That is the key right there.
Right. And we'll look at how this guerrilla setup completely shifts the meaning of a live performance compared to a formal indoor stage.
So to really understand that shift in meaning, we have to start with the setting itself. Because honestly, the environment is practically a supporting character in this narrative.
Oh, without a doubt.
We are at Ilsan Lake Park, and this isn't just an ordinary Sunday afternoon.
No, the timing is huge.
It is May 10, which happens to be the absolute final day of the 2026 Goyang International Flower Festival.
And for those who might not know, this is a massive 17-day cultural event.
Massive.
The environment is highly accessible, it's communal, and it is already buzzing with this intoxicating spring energy.
Yes. You have families, elderly couples, teenagers.
Locals who just wandered out of their nearby apartments to look at the floral displays.
Exactly. The park is absolutely saturated with diverse foot traffic.
And that detail is crucial. It highlights the fundamental difference between this space and a standard concert venue.
Right.
Like, let's look at the psychology of a formal venue first. I mean, a formal concert is essentially a vault.
What vault? Yeah, that is a great analogy.
Because fans pay good money, they walk through the doors, and they are voluntarily locked inside with the artist for 2 hours.
They are completely captive.
Yes, a captive audience. The lighting designer tells them exactly where to look. The sound system overwhelms their senses.
Right.
And the artist already has their undivided loyalty before the first note is even played.
The social contract is already signed.
Exactly. But a festival busking setup like this, it is an open-air incubator.
Oh, an incubator. I like that.
You aren't locking anyone in. Every single person walking past is a free agent. Their attention must be earned literally second by second.
Yeah, there was no guaranteed loyalty out there.
Right. In an incubator, you have to perfectly maintain the conditions, the temperature, the pacing, the engagement, or the entire experiment just dissipates.
Because if a passerby loses interest for even 10 seconds, what do? They just keep walking.
They just walk away. Which is exactly why the wide view footage from our trusted friend is so invaluable here.
It really is.
If you only look at a tight fan cam that isolates the singer's face, you completely miss the actual magic of the busking format.
You miss the context.
The wide angle lets us observe those spatial dynamics. We can see the sheer openness and vulnerability of the stage, which, again, is really just a stretch of pavement.
Really just concrete.
Yeah. But most importantly, we can watch the casual passersby. You literally see people walking at a brisk pace, suddenly slowing their stride.
Turning their heads.
Yes, stopping completely, and eventually reaching into their pockets to lift their phones to record.
It is the physical manifestation of winning someone over.
It is. You can see the geography of their attention shift.
Yeah, and from an analytical standpoint, it visually proves the emotional resonance of what the artists are doing.
Absolutely.
Because in the first few minutes of the footage, you can see the ratio of dedicated fans. You know, the ones who perhaps track the guerrilla announcement on social media to the curious locals.
Right, you can spot the fans immediately.
Initially, the fans are this tight cluster right in the front. But as the performance goes on, that ratio shifts in real time.
It totally expands.
The perimeter grows deeper and deeper with locals. It is visual proof that Gwyn Dorado and Primrose are actively converting transient foot traffic into captivated engagement.
But let's pause here and just, play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay, let's do it.
To understand the weight of this event, we really need to contextualize exactly where these artists are in early 2026.
Good point.
By this point, Gwyn Dorado had become a highly visible, highly discussed figure in South Korea. She had just come off a phenomenal runner-up finish on JTBC's Sing Again 4.
Then I think we need to explain what that actually means.
Yeah, please do.
Because if you aren't steeped in the Korean broadcasting ecosystem, you might just think, oh, she was on a reality singing show.
Right, like an American Idol kind of thing.
Yeah, but Sing Again is a very specific type of program. It's not just a flashy talent contest. It's a redemption and discovery show.
Which changes the whole dynamic.
Completely. It takes artists who perhaps didn't hit the mainstream initially or who have this unique, undiscovered quality, and it builds an intense, week-by-week parasocial bond with the viewing public.
So the audience feels really connected to them.
Exactly. The media narrative across the country wasn't just, here is a great singer. They were framing her as a rising, Korea-based Filipino vocalist with this undeniable generational talent.
Wow.
By the time she finished that run, the Korean public didn't just admire her vocal runs. They felt like they had discovered her.
They felt ownership.
Yeah, they felt protective of her. She was someone they were actively rooting for.
And then you bring in the Primrose element, which makes the strategy incredibly layered.
It really complicates things in a good way.
Because this Goyang performance is not their first time sharing a stage. Just a month prior to this, in April 2026, Gwyn and Primrose were heavily promoted together for AO Entertainment's showcase at the Hong Kong Sevens.
Now, you really have to contrast Ilsan Lake Park with the Hong Kong Sevens.
Oh, night and day.
That is a massive international sporting event. You're talking about huge crowds, a global broadcast, immense corporate pressure, and just massive production value.
Which leads me to a major question.
Okay.
And this is something I imagine you, the listener, are probably wondering right now.
What's that?
Why make this move? Why do you go from a massive, highly produced international stadium event in Hong Kong in April straight to a stripped-down guerrilla street busking event in a public park in Goyang in May?
It does seem counterintuitive.
Right. If you just played a stadium, doesn't setting up on a sidewalk look like a demotion? Doesn't it risk signaling to the industry that your momentum is slipping?
It absolutely looks like a jarring pivot on the surface.
Yeah.
But this gets to the core of how longevity is built in today's music industry.
Unpack that.
This is a deliberate step phase. When they went to Hong Kong, they proved their scale. They proved to executives and global audiences that they could hold their own on an intimidating, highly structured stage with all the bells and whistles.
Right. They passed the big stage test.
But Goyang proves their accessibility.
So it is about balancing the corporate with the grassroots.
Exactly. Performing in public, completely stripped of the massive production safety nets. I mean, there are no perfectly tuned stadium acoustics.
No background dancers to hide behind.
Right, no elaborate lighting cues. It tests their true live metal. It forces them to rely purely on their raw vocal talent and their organic charisma.
There's nothing to hide behind.
Nothing at all. From a strategic standpoint, it builds an immense amount of public goodwill. They are stepping off the pedestal and coming directly to the people rather than asking the people to buy a ticket to come to them.
And I want to dig into how they manage that transition from, untouchable idol to approachable artist, because they execute it brilliantly from the very first second of the video.
They really do.
Let's look at the unfiltered opening of their set. The very first interaction isn't some slick, pre-recorded intro track. It's charmingly unpolished.
Feels very human.
Yes. The artists take the microphones, and they immediately address the physical reality of the environment.
Which was the intense heat.
Yeah. They introduce themselves, Lion, Hain, Ruby, Ray from Primrose, and Gwyn, who introduces herself as Dorado. But right away, Gwyn admits that the busking was put together a bit hurriedly.
She just owns it.
She does. She looks at the crowd, acknowledges the blazing sun, and says, "The weather's really hot. Your skin might get tan while you're with us, but I'd appreciate it if you could still enjoy it."
That banter is such a powerful psychological tool.
It really is. It completely shatters the fourth wall.
Yeah, they acknowledge the discomfort. It's unseasonably hot. They are sweating. The crowd is sweating. By pointing it out and joking about it, they instantly level the playing field.
It is no longer a dynamic of us up here on the stage and you down there in the crowd.
Exactly. It becomes a shared endurance test. They are in it together.
It is a brilliant display of empathy, and they carry that exact warmth right into their musical strategy.
Oh, their setlist choices were so smart.
Right. When you are trying to capture a transient crowd, you don't blast them with a dense, overpowering electronic dance anthem right out of the gate.
That would just scare people away.
It would be so jarring for a Sunday afternoon park crowd. Instead, they open with acoustic warmth. Dorado introduces the first song, Melomance's Love's Language.
I recognized that choice immediately, but I had to ask myself, why start there?
Yeah, why not come out swinging with a massive high-energy hit to grab attention from far away?
Right. But when you think about the ecology of the park, it makes perfect sense. Melomance is essentially the soundtrack to the Korean spring.
It really is.
It is culturally ingrained as pleasant, sunny weather music.
And she follows it up with Oven's Flower. The pacing is just intensely intelligent. These choices act as an auditory welcome mat.
An auditory welcome mat. I love that.
They perfectly match the spring turning to summer vibe. When a casual listener walking their dog hears those gentle acoustic chords, their brain subconsciously registers the space as safe and pleasant.
It invites them to linger without demanding their full emotional investment right away.
Wait, I need to interrupt with a very practical question that kept bothering me while I watched the footage.
Well, what's that?
We established it is May 10th. It is unusually hot, and they are standing on a paved plaza.
Yeah.
How on earth are they keeping a wooden acoustic guitar and a violin in tune under direct sunlight? Because acoustic instruments hate heat and humidity.
That is such a fantastic point. And it highlights a technical layer that often gets completely ignored.
Because it's hard to spot on camera.
Right. The ambient environment is actively fighting them. Direct sunlight on wood causes immediate expansion. String tension changes minute by minute.
So they're constantly fighting going out of tune.
Exactly. That live band isn't just casually playing, they are micro-adjusting and compensating throughout the entire set.
That is stressful just to think about.
It is. Furthermore, when you are outdoors, you don't have acoustic bounce back.
What does that mean for the singers?
Well, in a room, the sound hits a wall and comes back to your ear. In a park, the sound just escapes into the atmosphere. The singers have to push more air from their diaphragm just to hear themselves.
So the margin for error is incredibly thin.
Extremely thin.
And yet, once they have the crowd lingering through those warm acoustic openers, that is when they start to flex their genre agility.
Which is crucial for a park setting.
Yes. The setlist progression is an absolute masterwork in demographic capture. Think about the diversity of a flower festival crowd.
It's everybody.
You have teenagers, young adults, middle-aged couples, and seniors. If you only play one genre, you alienate 75% of your potential audience.
Exactly. You have to pivot, and you have to do it seamlessly.
How did they manage that?
We see this first with what I call the K-pop pivot. Primrose's Hayne steps up and delivers a fresh, acoustic rendition of Seraphim's Burn to Shine.
And taking a highly produced, choreography-heavy K-pop track and stripping it down to raw vocals and a guitar is not easy.
Not at all.
A lot of modern pop relies on the density of the production, the bass drops, the synth layers to carry the momentum.
Right. To make it work acoustically, you need immense vocal rhythm. You have to carry the groove entirely with your voice. It proves their fundamental musical adaptability.
From there, they tap into the viral factor. They perform a cover of Young K's Blue.
Such a smart choice.
And what I appreciate is that they don't just play it. They explicitly frame it for the younger crowd.
What did they say?
They literally say, this is a song that's coming up a lot on Instagram Reels these days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They are actively signaling to the Gen Z and millennial audience that they are plugged into current digital trends. It is a calculated digital hook.
But, if you only pander to the Gen Z crowd with Instagram trends, don't you risk alienating the older locals who have been standing in the sun for 20 minutes?
You absolutely do, which is why their very next move is a complete 180-degree turn.
Oh, I know exactly what moment you're talking about.
This is the moment in the footage that genuinely fascinated me, the nostalgia play.
Yes.
Dorado introduces a classic 1980s Korean ballad, Jae-ha's The Covered Up Road.
And for the listener who might not be familiar, Jae-ha is often considered the father of modern Korean pop ballads.
He's a legend.
Absolutely. His music holds a profoundly emotional place in the hearts of older Korean generations. It is a deeply respected catalog.
And Dorado doesn't just sing it. She actively bridges the generational gap. She looks at the older folks in the crowd and asks, if you know this, can you sing along?
And they do. The response is audible.
It really is.
But what makes this specific performance legendary, and you can see this clear as day thanks to the wide view footage from our friend, is the unscripted intervention of the environment.
The bird.
Yes. Right as she is singing this emotional acoustic classic, a bird in the park literally starts singing along with the melody.
It's almost unbelievable.
It's loud, it's distinct, and it happens perfectly in the space between her phrasing.
A lot of people might dismiss that as just a cute random blooper, but I look at it through the lens of live theater.
How so?
In a traditional concert, if a random noise interrupts a ballad, it breaks the illusion. It ruins the take. But in busking, it is like breaking the fourth wall.
Right, you can't ignore the environment.
The artists react beautifully. They start laughing. They acknowledge it. They say something like, singing with the bird. Maybe the bird likes you.
And the whole crowd laughs with them. It instantly creates a shared reality.
It collapses the artificial barrier between the performer and the spectator.
Exactly. That unplanned moment actually grounds the performance in reality and proves the absolute irreplaceable spontaneity of the live busking format. It is a moment of friction that they successfully turn into an asset.
Having secured the older demographic with the ballad, they then expand their net globally.
We were just checking every box.
They really were. They perform a fast-paced anime OST, To Me, To You, which captures the Japanese pop culture fans in the crowd. Then Ray steps up and delivers a stunning Chinese ballad, showcasing their international capability and linguistic versatility.
And then they culminate this entire cover section with a powerhouse rendition of Lady Gaga's Always Remember Us This Way.
It is a staggering linguistic and stylistic flex. But before we get to the vocal climax of the event, we have to talk about the spine of this entire operation.
The band.
Yes. None of this genre hopping, none of this acoustic adaptability works if you are just singing over a tinny, pre-recorded MP3 backing track playing out of a Bluetooth speaker. They brought a live band.
And they make a point to introduce them individually, which shows immense professional respect.
Which you don't always see in these busking setups.
Right. You have Yoon Joo-hyun on violin, Yo Min-soo on guitar, Lee Won on bass, and Yerin on piano.
I want to focus on that violin for a second. Bringing a live violin to an outdoor street busking setup is a massive logistical challenge, but it is a game changer sonically.
It really is. It elevates the texture of the performance from a standard street gig to a profound musical experience.
Can you explain the acoustic science behind why that specific instrument makes such a difference outdoors?
Absolutely. When you are outside, low frequencies from a bass or a kick drum tend to dissipate quickly into the ground in the open air.
They just get swallowed up.
Yeah, exactly. But high frequency, sustained, Sounds like a violin cut through the ambient noise.
Oh, that makes sense.
They pierce through the wind, the distant traffic, and the chatter of the crowd. The acoustic guitar provides the rhythmic foundation, the bass gives it depth, the piano adds the melodic structure. But that violin carries the emotion straight to the back of the plaza.
So it actually helps pull people in from further away.
Yes, it gives songs like the Jae-ha cover and the Chinese ballad a level of prestige that you simply cannot fake with a digital track.
It tells the audience, we take this street performance just as seriously as our stadium show in Hong Kong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that commitment to quality bleeds right into the interpersonal dynamics on stage.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
As we move into the final stretch of the event, the live chemistry between Dorado and the Primrose members, Ruby, Ray, and Han, becomes the undeniable focal point.
This is an area where I was particularly observant because blending acts can often go wrong.
Oh, terribly wrong.
Gwyn Dorado frequently operates as a soloist. Her core fan base even affectionately calls her Lado. When a strong soloist is paired with an established idol group, it can sometimes feel like a forced corporate merger.
Yes, like they were forced to be there.
Right. It can look like two entirely distinct entities standing awkwardly next to each other because a board of directors told them it would be good for cross-promotion.
Right, you often see them competing for the same acoustic space or physically stepping on each other's toes.
But here, the warmth is palpable.
You can see it clearly in the wide-angle shots.
Notice the way they yield physical space to one another. When Dorado takes a soaring vocal run, the Primrose members step back slightly, actively hyping her up.
They give her the spotlight.
And when Primrose delivers a sharp, dynamic group harmony, Dorado yields the center.
You see shared glances when a high note hits perfectly. It suggests genuine camaraderie rather than a contractual obligation.
It feels very natural.
They are sharing the spotlight beautifully, balancing Dorado's soulful presence with Primrose's group energy. It never feels like a competition for the crowd's affection. It feels like a unified alliance.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of the afternoon, the encore.
Oh man, this was incredible.
The set was supposed to be wrapping up. The sun has been beating down. The crowd has grown massive, filling the entire perimeter, and the energy is at an absolute peak.
Everyone is hooked.
The crowd demands more. And honestly, it looks like the live band is egging them on as well. So what do they choose to close with? They launch into Whitney Houston's I Have Nothing.
Let's just pause and appreciate the sheer audacity of this choice.
It is wild.
I Have Nothing is widely considered one of the most technically demanding vocal tracks in modern pop history.
Oh, for sure.
The breath control required, the seamless transition between chest voice and head voice, the massive belt in the chorus. To attempt that song in a controlled studio is risky.
Yeah.
To pull it off in the middle of a hot, open park, after you've been singing for an hour, sweating through your clothes, without the acoustic benefits of stage monitors, it is staggering.
And as a vocalist, when you don't have monitors reflecting your sound back to you, the natural instinct is to push harder, to strain your vocal cords just to hear your own pitch.
Which is incredibly fatiguing.
Extremely. I was watching the crowd's reaction in the background of the footage during the song. The casual chatter completely stops.
People were stunned.
You see people who were mid-conversation suddenly freeze, rooted to the spot. The vocal control, the sheer volume and clarity of the high notes in that open air, it anchors the entire event.
It really does.
It elevates them from great entertainers to undeniable vocal powerhouses.
And this is where the strategic genius of the entire afternoon reveals itself.
How so?
They use that exact moment of maximum awe when the crowd is completely silent, entirely captivated by this Whitney Houston cover, to execute a brilliant promotional pivot.
Oh, right.
After delivering this incredibly diverse, crowd-pleasing set of covers, giving all this immense value away for free, Primrose naturally transitions into promoting their upcoming summer comeback.
They take the mic and say, you know, half of 2026 has already passed. Please look forward to Dorado's future activities, and Primrose is preparing for a summer comeback.
It was so smooth.
And then finally, they perform their own original songs, including Cinema and Flower.
Now, normally, when street performers pivot from famous covers to their original unknown music, you see an immediate dip in crowd engagement.
Yeah, people love the songs they know.
They tend to walk away when the unfamiliar originals start playing. But here, the crowd stays absolutely glued. The perimeter doesn't shrink at all.
Why do you think that is?
Because the promotion feels entirely earned rather than transactional.
Sure.
Yeah, it is the sociological law of reciprocity playing out in a public plaza. They didn't start the show by shoving their new single down the crowd's throat.
They patiently built up to it.
They spent an hour curating a highly empathetic experience. They validated the crowd's presence. They suffered through the heat with them. They sang their favorite nostalgic hits. They accommodated multiple languages. And they proved their undeniable technical talent.
So by the time they ask for support for their original music, they have built so much relational equity that the crowd is more than willing to give it.
Exactly.
They gave the audience an unforgettable, high-quality concert on a random Sunday. In return, the audience gives them their attention, their cheers, and their future loyalty.
If we synthesize everything we've analyzed today, this incredibly valuable wide-view footage from our friend didn't just show us a concert.
No, it was much more than that.
It showed us a delicate ecosystem in perfect balance. It proved that Gwyn Dorado and Primrose possess the rarest kind of stage, presence-grounded, authentic charisma.
Authentic is the perfect word.
They have the kind of talent that works entirely without the protections, the smoke, and the mirrors of a conventional indoor stage.
Yeah, they don't need the bells and whistles.
Right. They demonstrated that they can command a patch of concrete in Ilsan just as effectively as they command a stadium in Hong Kong.
Which leads me to this final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We look at the music industry right now as we push deeper into the late 2020s, and it is increasingly obsessed with high-budget, hyper-polished digital perfection.
It really is. Everything is so slick.
We're in an era where every minor mistake is auto-tuned, every camera angle is meticulously cut, and every live performance is heavily augmented by backing tracks.
The artificiality is becoming the standard.
Exactly. But looking at this footage, could the ultimate flex of true star power simply be the ability to stand on a sidewalk in the hot sun and make a crowd of strangers stop walking?
That is a great question.
Next time you see a viral, highly edited performance clip online, ask yourself, how would this sound on a Sunday afternoon in the park?
That is a fantastic, clarifying question to leave off on. We want to extend a massive, sincere thank you to our friend for providing the wide-angle lens that made this entire analysis possible.
Yes, truly grateful.
It has been an absolute pleasure pulling these layers apart with you today.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep looking beyond the center of the frame.